Hello all, Rick here doing a breakdown video on something a little different, a favourite ship design from a more fantastical setting, but one that sticks out to me for its eldritch inspiration and foreboding presence. The first appearance of the Illithid Nautiloid was in Dungeon Magazine 28, which featured a crashed Nautiloid just after the release of the Spelljammer setting, which heavily features space travel. A twist to the usually medieval Dungeons and Dragons. The Nautiloids are the Illithid's trump card and a fiercely protected ship. They are not only vessels designed for traversing the vast skies, but also exiting a planet's atmosphere to reach space and beyond, into the wild space and astral seas of the multiverse. They can also jump through dimensions and the differing planes of reality, so you know, pretty powerful ships. The Mind Flayers, as the name suggests, feast on the brains of sentient creatures, and it is this need to consume them that had led the Illithid Empire to create these vessels. Although the origin of the Mind Flayers is lost, these ships certainly aided in their spread across multiple worlds and realities, expanding their reach. With a multiverse out there of minds to consume, why limit themselves to their home system? Or era, as some suspect they are time travellers. The Nautiloids were created as scout and colonisation ships, dispatched to survey the stars for a suitable home, one rich in intelligent life. Once a world had been found, the ship could subtly land, preferably in water, and begin the domination of the local populace, using the Mind Flayers' psychic abilities to enthrall people. From there, they could infect selected thralls with their Illithid offspring, the tadpole parasites, and birth new Mind Flayers, expanding their colony. As new Mind Flayers were created from the converted captives, a Nautiloid did not need to have a large crew to set up its colony, and typically a vessel, depending on size, had a crew of around 10 to 30, although it was likely that only a few of these were Illithid and the rest were thralls and slaves to the Mind Flayers. Over the iterations of Dungeons and Dragons, there have been numerous depictions of the Nautiloid, and although they all share features, there have been several versions, notably in scale and armaments. Generally, however, a ship was classified as such by the resemblance to a Nautiloid cephalopod, which ties in very well with the look of their crew, the Illithid themselves. The main features are a spiral shell, underslung keel, and the front-mounted tentacles or arms. The overall silhouette therefore resembled an ocean-dwelling creature and cuts a distinctive impression, sailing through the Astral Sea. Another eerie factor of these vessels is their near-silent operation, not only for the fact that, space, but also the psychic communication favoured by the Illithid meant that very little noise is generated by the crew or the ship itself. The exact method of crafting these vessels is not entirely certain, with several stories told over the changing lore of Dungeons and Dragons, but perhaps both are true. One tale tells of how the Illithid claimed a planet with giant snails on it and harvested them for their shells, converting the mollusk's home into a starfaring ship. This seems rather impractical, but who is to say? It could simply be the initial step. The other origin is that these vessels were grown and nurtured into this form. The bioorganic look to them, including their fleshy-esque interiors, seems to support this more than the hollowed-out shell origin, unless both are true. The corridors are full of organic curves, while the lighting is not from torches but dimly lit orbs that float ethereally. The doors are also simply orifices that contract and open in reaction to psychic commands, or potentially being tickled. During construction, Tubes are snaked throughout the vessel as veins and pumped full of a solution of liquefied brain matter, which will act as the nervous system of the ship, organically transmitting impulses throughout it from the various controls and psychic commands. This complex system of nerves effectively gives the ship a rudimentary intelligence of its own, although it is not truly sentient or aware. It is more like an organic computer awaiting inputs, which gives it a high level of autonomy. The helm of the vessel is generally one of several models of Spelljammer helm, a term given to the navigational device of most spacefaring ships in Dungeons & Dragons. These designs vary from a throne, a series of them, a pool, or a console. The pool seems to be the most common helm, but all of them require both physical manipulation and psychic control, narrowing down the potential pilots to such telepaths. However they are constructed, the sad truth is that they are increasingly rare, and the art of making new ones has been lost, primarily due to the collapse of their empire at the hands of the Gith, their own thralls, who threw off their psychic shackles and turned on their captors. The vessels themselves were armed with fairly rudimentary devices for defence, but on par for the science fantasy setting they were found in. They are not really that armoured, despite that large shell that makes up their hull. They generally are only about the strength of reinforced wood. Although the addition of extra armour was possible and generally added by ships that would be expected to face much combat at the cost of cargo capacity. They come equipped with at least 4 ballistae, with each requiring a gunner team of 3 and a single mangonel for hurling projectiles or explosives. Other models, depending on how advanced they are, may actually feature more arcane defences, such as some form of energy weapon fired from a mounted turret. All Nautiloid feature grasping tentacles at the fore of the vessel, which make up roughly half the ship's length, and these serve several purposes. The primary two are that they can grasp and snare other creatures or even ships, although they are rather slow to react. While in flight, however, they can bunch up and tie together to form a solid spire that can be used to pierce an enemy vessel, effectively creating a spiked ram. More recently, we have seen them be used to snare other creatures by having some form of teleportation mechanism behind them, so that when they tag a creature, that creature is then captured and teleported inside the Nautiloid. They have a carrying capacity of 17 to 35 tons, again dependent on the scale of the ship. There are other classes of Illithid vessel too, such as the Lance, a narrower vessel, and the larger Dreadnought. The Dreadnought was known for carrying an Elder Brain inside it, the hive mind generator creature of the Mind Flayers, and as such was a far more defendable ship. When it comes to the naming of Nautiloids, they tend to be named after concepts of thought, such as the Id Ascendant or Lucent Edict, although occasionally they just have edgy names, like the Void Reaper. So, that is a Nautiloid, a far more fantastical interpretation from a setting that is likewise as strange. I love the concept of the vessel being so uniformly in keeping with its crew and creators, and the setting of Spelljammer itself remains a pretty unique one too. I don't often lean this far into fantasy on this channel, but occasionally it's nice to take a step into the strange. So, until the next video, thank you for watching. I've been Rick, and I'll see you next time for another lore video on a sci-fi topic. Thanks again, and goodbye.